It's confirmed Horizon Zero Dawn will be on PC. Here's an interview from the former managing director of Guerrilla Games, Herman Hulst. He pretty much confirmed that Horizon Zero Dawn is coming to PC. The Steam page is online right now, you can check it out, I'll link down below. He also said that releasing one first-party AAA title to PC doesn't necessarily mean that every game now will come to PC. In his mind, Horizon Zero Dawn was just a great fit in this particular instance. There are no dates planned yet for the actual release, but Horizon for PC is definitely coming around summer, and they remain 100% committed to dedicated hardware. So to all the fanboys feeling very salty on this prospect, no, you can still have your Last of Us or God of War or Persona or whatever PlayStation exclusive franchises that will come out in the next few years. I feel like the PlayStation and the Xbox will still have their place in the overall gaming landscape. While the PC is definitely made for gaming enthusiasts who wants the highest resolution and highest frame rate with the latest technology, and they want them right now, the console is still a very comfortable choice for those who don't want to think too much when they play their games. They just want a straightforward, no-nonsense experience, and I can totally see that appeal, even as a PC gamer. And the next-gen consoles seem promising on paper. At the rumored price of around $470 for the PS5, it sounds like a compelling option for those people who just want to have a simple, dedicated gaming console that can play their latest AAA titles. It will be powered by an AMD 8-core Zen CPU, AMD Navi GPU equivalent to an RTX 2080 apparently, custom SSD that can bring in ultra-fast loading times, and a 4K Blu-ray player if you're still into that sort of thing. It also has ray tracing. It can drive visuals up to 4K at 120Hz, assuming that you have the expensive TV that can run all the way up to that point, which costs about the same as a mid-range gaming PC. So the PS5 with its amazing killer specs plus backwards compatibility with previous PS4 games sounds like a great deal for $470, especially as a way to prepare for the upcoming next-gen titles. But since we're still in a transition period between the console generations, and since we're dealing with the case of the human malware, I think it's gonna take a while before we're seeing the real capabilities of this console and the Xbox Series X for that matter. And here's where I'm gonna do the usual thing of convincing you people to get into PC gaming, because PC gaming is amazing and it offers a lot of customizability and all of that crap, but I'm gonna be fair to the consoles. The consoles are undeniably less complicating to use and a lot less hassle to get through. Some people just want to game, and by game I mean they want to play the latest and prettiest AAA titles. I would even go as far as to say that if you're mostly playing newer titles and you don't really care about frame rate and all of that crap, the consoles will suit you just fine. But I am not that kind of gamer. In terms of my gaming experience, I don't really care what time you release your games, as long as they're fun to play. I recently played Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones, a game from my childhood, and I found out that the game got ported on the PC. I'm still able to play the game just fine on my PC right now at high resolution with a controller and get into the nostalgia that I had playing the game on the PS2. I played Ocarina of Time with a Dolphin emulator with high resolution texture mods in 2018, and I still enjoyed it. I still play the original Final Fantasy VII, which I prefer to play over the remake because it has a charm that I don't think the remake can ever top. I explained that in this video, link down below or in the top right corner somewhere, and while you're visiting down below, you can also check the links and how to support me there. Oh, speaking of that video, I rewatched it again and I found this segment. Then there's the Blade Runner adventure game from Westwood. You won't be seeing a remaster of that game. I am so glad it didn't age well. But let's get back to PC gaming. Again, I am not the kind of gamer who only wants to play the latest and prettiest titles. I'm not the kind of gamer who only wants to play games on the PC or the PS4 or the Switch or whatever current gen consoles these days are. I want to play video games from all kinds of platforms, as long as I'm interested in playing those games and they're very fun games to play. I don't know about you, but I think the younger generations of gamers, or the Zoomers in general, need to be taught a lesson in appreciating the classics. I think you need to understand the context of my history with video games. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and enjoy a little bit of story time. I was born in 1998. When I was a kid in the early 2000s, the first console that I had was a bootleg NES knockoff. That's the cheapest that my family can afford at the time. Funny thing about 1998 is that there's an economic crisis in Indonesia called Crysis Moneter, or Monetary Crisis, and because I was born in 1998, my nickname was Chrismon. Makes me sound like an unused Digimon character. The first game that I ever played on that system was the original Super Mario Bros., which I played in the early 2000s where everyone is playing PS1. Ever since then, I also played other games on my father's Windows 98 Office PC, or at least the games that can run on it, like Final Doom. I grew up with Final Doom and I loved Final Doom. It takes quite a while for my family to be able to afford a legit PS1, where I play games like Tekken 3 or Spider-Man. Yeah, remember Spider-Man on the PS1? I freaking loved that game as a kid. Growing up in Indonesia is a rather severe case of always being left behind in terms of video game generations for the low or even middle class people. When people are playing PS2s, I'm playing PS1. When people are playing PS3s, I'm still playing PS2. When people are playing PS4s, actually, I have never owned a PS3 because I was not that rich. But one very consistent thing that will never ever change between all of those generation leaps is the fact that I always play on the PC. Several PCs actually, spanning year after year. When I was in middle school in the early 2010s, I was given an HP Mini 110 that my dad didn't use anymore because he has a better laptop. I used to do a lot of schoolworks there because if my dad gives me a gaming laptop, I'd be using it for gaming and he doesn't like that. But what my dad didn't know is that this HP Mini can play some video games too. Sure, it cannot play the latest and greatest at the time, but it can still play video games. I played games like the original Unreal Tournament, Age of Empires 2, the original StarCraft, Fallout 1 and 2, Diablo 2, No One Lives Forever 2, System Shock 2, Thief the Dark Project, the original Half-Life, Counter-Strike 1.6, the original Deus Ex, which still remains my favorite game of all time. I even played Morrowind in there, which surprisingly runs pretty well. And before you ask how I got all of those games, I did say I am poor. Yes, this thing runs like a broken tractor. It has a freaking Intel Atom processor. You'd think that this wouldn't be good for gaming, but no, it's still very good for gaming. You just need to pick the right games. And I gotta tell you, if it weren't for that HP Mini, I wouldn't have played all of those games I mentioned, and Deus Ex wouldn't be my favorite game of all time. I owed quite a lot to that little thing, and that little thing is unfortunately dead now, so rest in peace. I also own a couple of pre-built PCs. I had one that has an AMD Sempron and an NVIDIA GT210. It can run games like Half-Life 2 or the original Far Cry, which is still fun to play. That's the PC where I played the Mass Effect trilogy as well, and if I recall correctly, they're playable in there, but not that well. I can still enjoy them, but it was a pretty cheap machine, so it does hiccup at times, and I mostly play at 720p anyway, because my AOC monitor can only go so far as 768p. That's also the time where I played the first season of Telltale's Walking Dead, which is still amongst my favorite game of all time, even if the sequels aren't as great. Even though that was a current year game at the time, the game is not that demanding, and I wouldn't have experienced that game without the PC. Because I was the #1 student in my middle school class at the time, my dad also rewarded me with another unused HP Office PC with a dual-core AMD Venom. I actually recorded myself playing with that PC back in 2013 after buying a Radeon HD 6770 GPU and a 700-watt 80-plus power supply for about, I think, $100 total. That Office PC has turned into a relatively decent entry-level gaming PC for 2013. The one game that I spent the most on that PC is easily Skyrim. I even posted my character on Facebook, including my female shepherd too. That was around 2013 to 2014, and that was also at the time where I entered high school. My parents bought me an Asus K45DR laptop with a quad-core AMD A8 4500M with an HD 7640G plus 7470M dual graphics. I even had a picture for it on Facebook with me playing Resident Evil 5 with a bootleg Xbox controller. Again, while that laptop couldn't play the latest and greatest games, I'm still able to play games like Resident Evil 5. Funny thing about Resident Evil 5, my cousin has a PS3 and I have to go to his house just to play Resident Evil 5 on the PS3 because he has a PS3 and I don't. But with that laptop, I don't have to go to his house just to play Resident Evil 5 anymore because I have my own personal laptop and I can play Resident Evil 5. That laptop served me throughout my high school, but it unfortunately died just as I entered college around 2016. Rest in peace. The next laptop that I have is another Asus. It's an X550ZE with an AMD A10 7400P that for some reason got reported as an AMD FX 7600P. Regardless, it has a Radeon R7 plus R5 M230 graphics. It's an upgrade from the last laptop, and ever since that laptop, I cannot have a laptop without a numpad because I used it so much. That's the laptop that I used to make YouTube videos in my early years, and that laptop would heat up so much that it would just shut down at random times. That thing can run Metal Gear Solid 5. Barely, but playable enough at least. So after about a year with that laptop, I saved up some money to buy my own, and thanks to YouTube, I can. I bought the Asus X550VX with a Core i7-6700HQ and an NVIDIA GTX 950M. I remember playing NieR Automata on that thing, and while it isn't exactly the most ideal setup, it's not a bad experience after I tuned out the settings and installed the farm mod. I also played Tekken 7 in there, runs pretty well, and I really enjoy playing it in there. That's also the laptop I used to play PS2 games using an emulator. And to an extent, that's also the laptop that made me to be a Persona fan. After about a year, I saved up more money to buy another one, which is the Asus ROG DL553VD, and gave my other laptop to my brother. I love Asus, if you can't tell. The ROG is the laptop that I have the absolute most experience with. That's the laptop where I make the most of my YouTube videos, and unfortunately, that laptop died at early February. Rest in peace. As for the ZE and the VX, they're both given to my cousins for their high school needs, and as far as I know, they still work to this day. Right now, I'm running the Acer Nitro 7 AN71551 with a Core i7-9750H and a GTX 1660 Ti. I even built my own PC, which has a Ryzen 5 1500X and an RX 570, and throughout that time, I also have two PS4s, one in here and one in Bali, and also a Nintendo Switch. So my gaming journey started from pretty much the bottom. If I go back in time and tell my old self that I can buy a lot of these really amazing hardware with the money that I earned myself, I probably wouldn't believe it. And yet, here I am. I couldn't afford a lot of the things that I can afford right now if it weren't for you guys on YouTube, so thank you so much for making my gaming journey from bootleg NES, HP Minis, and Office PCs into proper gaming PCs and consoles. None of this is possible without your help. So what's with all of that history? What's the point you're trying to make here? Well, the point that I'm trying to make here is very simple. Even with really cheap and not so great hardwares, I still had an amazing, unforgettable experience. Back then, I am way too poor to be able to keep up with the latest gaming trends. So when people around the world were playing Call of Duties or Halos in their PS3s or Xboxes, I am still playing my PS2, a fat PS2 that has broken audio that just mutes itself out of nowhere after like 30 minutes of playing. So I pretty much played a lot of PS2 games with a broken PS2 that has no audio when everyone is playing PS3s in their HD TVs. Not exactly rock bottom, yes, but it's pretty low. Point is, I can still game with cheap hardware, even on PC. You cannot seriously tell me that PC gaming is way too expensive. You can buy an office PC for like $150 and use that to play video games. Not the latest games for sure, but my question here is, if you really call yourself a gamer, why would you limit yourself to newer games? There are many older games out there that would provide you with amazing, unforgettable experiences, but unfortunately, a lot of people here are way too posh and way too much of a zoomer that they look at older games and thought, why would anyone play this pixel crap in current year? Which, by the way, has happened before. Maybe this is just the old man side of me ranting, but I just really hate how kids these days can't appreciate the old. It's not just video games, mind you, it's other entertainment media as well. I mean, the original Seven Samurai and The Godfather are two of my favorite films of all time, and I watched Seven Samurai only last year. I just don't get the normies or the zoomers who base their media consumption only on current year stuff. Maybe because I'm an enthusiast in the hobby and they are not. Maybe it's because the new zoomer mentality of keep looking forward and never look back. But there's nothing wrong with looking back. While the past has its flaws, it also produces amazing stuff that are still influential even to this day. Not everything is built by the future. Not everything has to be dependent on the future. The past can be an amazing time to go back to. The entertainment media of the past can still be enjoyable even to this day. I talk about Horizon coming to PC because the PC is the only platform where you can truly experience video games from many different generations. It's not just games released on the PC, it's also games from the Atari 2600 all the way to even the PS3 through emulation, which isn't really all that bad, guys. I mean, think about this. I want to play Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the video game, a game that is pretty much gone from any sort of digital distribution for no reason given, and that's a digital-only game. If you want to play that game, you have to download the ROM for that game and play it through an emulator. That's the only way you can play it at the time of making this video. If it weren't for people ripping the game's files from the PS3, this game wouldn't have been playable in the future. This also extends to games that are still stuck on a specific console. For example, the SMT games on the PS2, like Nocturne or Digital Devil Saga. If you don't have a PS2, you're out of luck playing those games, even though they are amazing games. Persona 4 is still stuck on a PS2, the golden version is still stuck on a Vita, the first Red Dead Redemption, stuck on a PS3 and Xbox 360. Can't play them unless you have the consoles, and even the emulation for this game is not perfect yet. The Resistance games stuck on the PS3, Infamous 1 and 2 are still on the PS3, Metal Gear Solid 4, stuck on the PS3. I can go on, but you get my point. For me as a gaming enthusiast, having these games bound to a console would risk them being not only forgotten, but unplayable by future generations who are playing their games on a PS5 or the PS6 or something. The PS2 is discontinued around 2012 to 2013, and not a lot of people sell PS2 these days. So how are you gonna play these PS2 games when they don't make or even sell PS2s anymore? I think you know the answer. But hey, at the end of the day, video games are luxury items. They're not as important as food or water or a place to live. You can pretty much live without video games in your life. Doubtful, but you can try, and it's not something that you should be thinking about too much. That's the reason why we have consoles as an option, and people can have their reason in choosing a console, and we can agree or disagree on that. And if you're only looking forward to play the latest and prettiest games in current year, then yeah, I suppose the cheapest and most guaranteed way to get the latest and prettiest is to get a console. If you love to play video games but you're not that much of an enthusiast to think about it too much, sure, go ahead and buy a console. That's your choice at the end of the day. But for those of you who are more serious in gaming, for those of you who really want to play video games both old and new, for those of you who truly want to experience the many things that video games can offer, the best platform to go is the PC. And no, you don't have to spend a lot of money. I played games on my HP mini laptop. I play games on old office PCs. I've had a great experience on them because I chose the games that are right for those systems. Yes, I played older games, but old games are still awesome, and they're still awesome even to this day. And if you don't like older games, well, sorry to say this, but you're totally missing out. I'm not saying that all new games are bad. New games can be very good, and I really enjoyed Horizon in particular. It's a pretty solid game. It's just that it's very rare for them to actually enter my favorite list of all time. Yearly list maybe, but not all time. In conclusion, whatever platform you chose to play your video games, we still end up playing video games and talking about video games and loving video games the same. This isn't really a matter of PC master race versus console peasant because I can see the argument for both. I have both and I can see the appeal for both. I'm just saying that with consoles specifically, those that don't have backwards compatibility, you can't really experience what decades of video game history can truly offer. Broaden your horizons and give older games a chance. You can't always rely on the latest and prettiest stuff to please you. The past contains amazing and unforgettable experiences. So if you're one of those people who only stick to the console and stick to whatever the newest trendy game that people have been playing, well, It's nice that you're in that comfort zone, but it's also nice to get out of it once in a while. If you have a standard office PC or a non-gaming laptop, they might still be able to play amazing old games if you're willing to give them that chance. All I want is for people to have the same amazing experience that I had growing up. Not the hardware experience for sure, but the games themselves. I played amazing games on an old laptop with an Intel Atom. If you're the kind of person who thinks that you can only get to PC gaming if the PC can play the latest games, if you think that PC gaming is only good if it can play this one game, you are terribly mistaken. The latest is not always the greatest. If the latest games disappoint you, and oftentimes it does, nothing beats the old.